Welcome back to my channel, Celeb Buzz. Please share and subscribe and press the bell icon for new updates. Disney said, "Hey," or Bob Iger said, "Hey, if you really want to sell your company, if you're thinking about selling that because we were talking about getting older, and what are you going to do after all this kind of thing?" George Lucas doesn't argue with actors, he replaces them. In a galaxy far, far away from how Hollywood usually works, Lucas built an empire on one simple rule. The big idea comes first, big egos come last. For 40 years, he's controlled every shot, every word, every moment of his movie world. And when an actor tried to mess with that control, they didn't get a big dramatic exit. They got digitally erased. Lucas treats movies like building machines. Every part does a specific job in a bigger machine. Actors aren't artists working together on a shared dream. They're parts delivering results that were already planned. When a part breaks, you don't fix it, you replace it. Lucas has spent billions making his worlds perfect, and he's never let a single actor ruin that perfection. But some actors never understood the rules. They showed up expecting to give creative ideas, help develop their characters, and add emotional feelings. They forgot they were stepping into a world already finished in Lucas's mind, where every word was planned and every movement helped the story. When they tried to change things, Lucas didn't fight harder. He simply moved on without them. These aren't stories of creative fights or arguments. These are tales of mistakes where famous stars met someone who wouldn't budge and learned that in Lucas's galaxy there are no deals, only results. 6. Kurt Russell. Kurt Russell seemed perfect for the Star Wars world. Tough, likable, and just right for space adventure, he was Hollywood's favorite action hero in the early 1980s. When Return of the Jedi started getting ready, Russell's name was at the top of every fan's list to possibly replace Han Solo. Lucas wasn't interested in the movies in order to try to wake up a certain kind of spiritual feeling in people. Battlefield, the problem wasn't talent. Russell had proved himself in Escape from New York and The Thing. The problem was independence. Russell came from the John Carpenter school of movies, where actors and directors worked together as equals. He expected to help shape his characters, help with dialogue, and change action scenes. Lucas reportedly stared at him for a full 10 seconds, then said, "The big action is the human moment." Resisting Russell left without a role, and Lucas moved forward with actors who understood that in his world, characters served the story, not the other way around. I had all these really big action scenes. I couldn't really explain what I wanted to do with drawings. Russell never publicly said bad things about Lucas, but people noticed the coldness between them at movie events. Lucas, for his part, kept casting actors who could disappear into costumes and makeup without asking for reasons behind every lightsaber swing. 5. William Hurt. William Hurt was everything George Lucas avoided in actors: internal feelings, slow preparation, and a focus on emotional truth. When casting started for the prequel trilogy in the late 1990s, Hurt's name came up for several important roles. Lucas shut down every suggestion with growing frustration. Hurt's way of working on characters was famous in Hollywood. He spent months researching roles, creating backstories, and finding ways into every part. For most, this hard work was valuable. For Lucas, it didn't work with his fast production methods. The prequels worked on tight schedules with lots of digital effects work. There was no time for trying things out or discovering new ideas. The breaking point came during early talks for Attack of the Clones. Hurt showed interest in playing a Jedi Master, and his people arranged a first meeting. Hurt arrived having studied various thinking traditions that might help a character's connection to the Force. He wanted to discuss the spiritual meanings of using such power and how it might show in small behavior choices. Lucas reportedly stopped him 20 minutes into the conversation. "It's space magic, Bill. Point wave. Things move." Hurt kept going, explaining how he could bring importance to the role through careful attention to the character's internal journey. Lucas ended the meeting by saying, "The internal journey happens in post-production." The role went to Christopher Lee, who understood that playing a Sith Lord needed presence, not deep thinking. Lee said his lines with Shakespearean style, while understanding that the real acting would come through digital help and John Williams' music. Hurt kept building complex characters in small dramas. Lucas kept building galaxies without him. 4. Kevin Spacey. Kevin Spacey had the smart intelligence that could have made him a perfect Star Wars bad guy. His ability to show danger beneath a civilized surface seemed perfect for the Sith. But Lucas found out that Spacey's greatest strength as an actor became his greatest weakness as a teammate. He was always acting even when the cameras weren't rolling. During early work on Revenge of the Sith, Spacey's name came up for General Grievous before the character became fully digital. The role needed an actor who could bring robot-like movements to human movement, creating a bridge between human acting and digital help. Spacey seemed perfect until Lucas realized he couldn't turn off his actor's habits. "I realized at some point I needed to retire, and I wanted to go on and do other things in charity work, and in their only big interaction, Spacey treated every conversation like a tryout. He changed his voice, adjusted how he stood, and gave responses with dramatic timing." When Lucas explained the technical needs of acting against blue screens with tennis balls standing in for other characters, Spacey immediately started showing how he would change his technique. He acted out reactions to pretend aliens and said sample lines with different voices. The final problem came when Spacey suggested script changes that would give Grievous more deep thinking. He wanted to explore the character's relationship with his robot body and the loss of his real body. Lucas realized that Spacey saw every role as a chance to show off his acting skills rather than serve the bigger story. Grievous became completely digital, voiced by Matthew Wood, who understood that sometimes the best acting is the one nobody notices. 3. Gary Oldman. Gary Oldman could become anyone. Got a plan for 7, 8, and 9, which are the end of the trilogy, and other films. Also, Oldman approached each possible role as a complete reinvention. He didn't just read lines, he lived in different personas that could completely change how scenes worked. During a reading for a small Senate character, Oldman created an entire accent, physical manner, and political thinking that turned 2 pages of talking into a complex picture of galactic government. It was brilliant acting that would have taken over the scene's actual purpose. The deciding moment came when Oldman suggested that his character could have connections to other planets, creating chances for bigger storylines in future films. Lucas realized that Oldman thought like a partner, building a shared world rather than an employee serving a pre-planned vision. The roles went to actors who could give solid performances without reshaping the galaxy around them. Oldman kept transforming into unforgettable characters in other movie series. Lucas kept building his empire with actors who understood that in Star Wars, the universe was the star. 2. Anthony Hopkins. Anthony Hopkins commanded respect wherever he appeared. His just being there made material better, turned simple scenes into memorable moments, and brought importance to any production. For George Lucas, that was exactly the problem. Hopkins was too powerful for the Star Wars world, too magnetic to serve as anything other than the center of attention. The chance came during making of the prequel trilogy, when Hopkins showed real interest in joining the saga. Undermined studio bosses were excited. Having Hannibal Lecter himself as a Jedi Master would bring respect and adult believability to what critics called children's entertainment. Lucas was scared. Hopkins worked on a different level than other actors. His preparation was famous, his technique perfect, his screen presence overwhelming. In any scene, audiences would focus on Hopkins no matter what other characters were doing or saying. Lucas had spent decades building a world where big action and mythology took first place over individual performances. Hopkins would have shifted that balance simply by being there. The conversation ended when Hopkins mentioned his interest in working with Lucas to develop the character's story across multiple films. Lucas politely explained that character stories were already planned and served specific story jobs. 3 or 4 months of showings. Probably a dozen, 2 dozen showings at least. The word really got out that the film was a success. Disregard thoughtfully, understanding that he was being turned away. The roles went to actors who could deliver wisdom without taking over the scenes with their personal power. Hopkins kept commanding screens in respected dramas. Lucas kept building worlds where no single part overshadowed the story whole. Sean Connery. The biggest rejection in Star Wars history happened behind closed doors, but its effect echoed through decades of casting choices. Sean Connery was offered the role of Obi-Wan Kenobi in the original trilogy and turned it down, calling the script confusing nonsense. Lucas never forgot that dismissal, and when chances came to work with Connery later, the director's response was quick and forever. Never again. Connery's rejection wasn't just professional, it was personal. He had read the script for A New Hope and reportedly told his agent that science fiction was beneath his artistic standards. He compared it badly to serious drama and said that Lucas was wasting his talent on kid fantasy. The role went to Alec Guinness, who understood that bringing dignity to action movies was an art form in itself. Connery's presence could add importance to Attack of the Clones. Lucas reportedly responded he had his chance to add importance. He chose to add nothing instead. The director had learned that Star Wars didn't need establishment believability, it had created its own. George Lucas proved that in his galaxy, the director's vision rules. He didn't need Hollywood's biggest names to build cinema's most lasting movie series. Sometimes the most powerful force is simply knowing when to say no.